This week on Right Now, should the state really decide who lives and who dies? I'm joined by Archie Battersbee's mother, Hollie Dance. She'll be talking about this week's High Court victory against the judge's original ruling. It grants them another chance to plead the case for their 12-year-old son's life support not to be turned off. Health and wellness specialist and mother Daniela Lawler, she weighs in on Roe versus Wade. Campainger Tony Stowell comes into the studio to tell us about a bizarre private meeting he had with former Health Secretary Matt Hancock back in October 2020. Dr. Barre Lando shares his knowledge about living off-grid in California and his new Ickonic documentary, The Magical Land. Actor Benny Wills explains why he quit the profession in the wake of censorship and wokeness. We'll also be airing the next instalment of our interview on the World Economic Forum with Rebel News journalist Lewis Brackpool.
What I've seen in the last couple of years is this indoctrination really take hold in certain segments of the population, which if you look at that alone, it would be possibly discouraging, to see how many people are being fooled at this time still. But what I see happening is really a great awakening. We are going to see an escalation in casualties from the medical practices that have been forced upon the people. And because they are so blatant in doing what they're doing now, many people are awakening. So, to answer your question, I see two sides. On one hand, I see a lot of death and destruction, and it's happening all around us. I'm still on the medical grapevine, so I get a lot of reports that are not, reported in the regular media, and it's quite disturbing. But then on the other hand, I see many people waking up and not going for it. So those who will be left, I think we've got a bright future, which is why at Alpha Vedic we're doing what we're doing, which is, creating a parallel system. So when the inevitable collapse culminates, we will have, be able to eat, be able to make our own medicine and take care of ourselves and build the world that, we wanted to see forever.
What this verdict has done is thrown it back into the hands of the state. So then the people in those states will be looking to their governor and how they're going to handle it now. And it probably will affect how these individuals are going to vote. So, and what the understanding seems to be between the American community of friends that I have is that they lost a lot of voters moving towards red during these last couple of years, and to steer them back to blue, this is why they think this has happened now. So because I think the red states are a little bit more stricter, they're more religious in terms of their views, so they might be more strict in terms of their policies for abortion. So I don't think it's that black and white and no. And I think there is this grey area in the middle of where people need to look to as well.
I call myself an apocalyptimist, so I'm very optimistic about the future. It doesn't mean I'm not realistic, and I recognize the patterns. And I've been in this game for a really long time, and part of me sees it as a wave that's still building momentum, that's yet to crash to shore. But it will crash to shore, and it's going to be really uncomfortable. But ultimately, good wins, and I think ultimately truth definitely wins. And what's going to happen? I think that more people are going to start speaking up as beacons, like you and I are, and others like us. And the media, the mainstream, I should call it the mainstream, is losing its power, which is why they're trying so hard to maintain relevancy and using tactics that they weren't using before, like silencing people. So there's a major backlash already occurring, and as soon as people, I think when it's like outside your door, it activates people more. I think that one of the best things about COVID in the last couple of years is that it's prompted people to finally do the things they've known they should be doing for years. So it's activating people. So the more they push, the more activated people become. And when they're activated, they take action, and action leads to change.
I went in with my daughter. I'm going to add this on, my mum's granddaughter. Now, my daughter adored her grandma, and vice versa. My mum had a one-to-one paid for by the system. My mum's care was free at this point on continuing healthcare. So you would suspect while they're paying for her care, they would give greater care because they're funding it.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. When you're paying for something, you want the best. So I go and see my mum. I said, hi, it's only Tony. I said, how's my mum? She said, oh, Tony, she's just upstairs with the one-to-one carer. I said, am I okay to go up with my daughter? Yeah, of course you can. So I go upstairs. My daughter just looks at me. And I looked at her. And I wanted to kick that door down. But I knew I couldn't for obvious reasons. Remember, I'm under a court order. They were trying to stop me doing everything I could to protect my mum. Am I okay to say what we heard?
Of course. Yeah.
Remember, my daughter's with me. My daughter was, I don't know, she's 20, 21, 22 now. She must have been 17, 18, along those lines. I heard the carer say to my mum, if you don't, am I okay swearing?
Yeah.
If you don't shut your fucking mouth, I'm going to shove you in there. And this is what I'm hearing from behind the door.
Oh, you'd be through the door, mate.
It's like, now this is it. I'm acting here. I'm broken. I heard that, and my daughter, I shriveled. I was a man, I shriveled. And when I say I shriveled, I mean because my daughter heard that.
Yeah.
You try and imagine being a father, a son, and the daughter hears that with her grandma being spoken to by a carer. In a care home, and I stress the word care.
Care is a loose term in this, isn't it?
For me it is. Again, I'm not going to call all carers because that would be completely wrong of me, you know. But as far as I'm concerned,
yeah,
I won't say too much
that's
on that
outrageous.
fact. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I had to brace myself. And I said to my daughter, Indy, 1, 2, and we're in. Because she knew the circumstances. So I then opened the door, but I opened it with aggression. But I said nothing from the mouth because I wanted the carer to know I knew what she'd said. So as I walked in, my mum looked frightened, so scared and childlike. And that broke me again because that's my mum, the lady who brought me into the world and gave me a life. And some scumbag is talking down to her like that. This is a grandma, a great-grandma, a mum.
We always talk about the cognitive dissonance. You know, people get information that very clearly shows them that this is by design, but then there's this emotional trigger that happens simultaneously that, you know, people say, well, nobody would do that to us. That can't be true. But it takes a while, you know, in the people business, I understood that emotions were very key in people's health and also the last things to change. So we have, you know, a good number of years under our belt now as a collective where people have had time to accommodate those emotions and just get over the fact that, wow, there really are people like that in the world that want to hurt other people. And so the people that are ready to wake up are waking up in droves. The next piece of the puzzle is, okay, what do we do about it? Because there are a lot of well-intended, educated people now, but they really don't know what to do. And that's what we're doing here. We're saying, well, you know, we can take care of ourselves. As a matter of fact, that's what people used to do. People used to have a little bit of food and resources put away. They used to, you know, not depend on agencies and bureaucracies for their needs. They understood that things like taxation was overt theft. They knew that government should be limited and not to be trusted. So here we are, we've come full circle. But I think the journey was necessary because we just got a little bit complacent along the way and maybe a little bit too fat and lazy. And so, you know, folks are really embracing where we're at now, at least the people in our circles, and very energetically, you know, eager to, you know, participate in this new lifestyle, because the old lifestyle, even when it seemed to be working, it was not fulfilling them spiritually. And, you know, there's nothing like getting out, you know, whether you're in an urban environment or out in the country, and just seeing the fruits of your own creativity, planting food, eating what you plant. You know, there's just, it's a whole different experience. And so it's quite an exciting time. again, it's not going to be times for the meek of heart, and we're going to see some intensity, as we go here. But I think a lot of us are ready for it.
As a mother, and most mothers would be horrified, really, to think somebody would abort a baby quite far on, because as soon as you start to feel that life moving in you, then you're connected to it. I think when there's exceptional circumstances, someone's been raped, or there's a young mother who's got pregnant by mistake, then they need to be able to have that right to be able to have an abortion. But generally in those situations, if you have been raped, then it's an instant thing, that that's happened to you, so you could probably act on that quite quickly. So you shouldn't need to get to those very latter stages of pregnancy. And then there's that grey area as well, that if you find out there's something severely wrong with your unborn child, and then you've got to take that decision at that point. Are you ready to take that on? Because that's life-changing for you. But then there's also been instances where the medical profession get it wrong, and you have the baby that they said there's something wrong with it, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's perfectly fine. So, and there's a lot of grey areas in this, in terms of what should be allowed and when.
Too many people just take what they say and obey. I'm sorry, I'm not obeying. I will not obey, not now. I've lost my mum. I can't bring her back. And yes, I respect I'm not the only one. I know that. There's many people out there now that are fighting a similar cases to what I'm fighting, but this is my mum I'm talking about.
Yeah, it means everything to you.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And I want the truth, and I want Matt Hancock up in court. And this is my next step. Once I get everything together, I want the DHSC, Department of Health and Social Care, up in court for this.
Do you think they'll ever be punished for it? That they'll ever be held accountable?
Well, I'm on that process.
Yeah, but hand on heart, do you believe that will happen?
Great question, but I know how determined I am, and I know they've lied. So I'll go to my grave fighting. That's all I can say.
That's great. That's great.
I'll go to my grave because I know the truth, and I'm getting knockback after knockback after knockback. I did. The gagging order was put on me. Why would they put a gagging order on me if I had nothing to say?
Exactly. Yeah.
Let's think about that one. Let's get that question out there. Why would they put a gagging order on little Tony Stowell? Why? If they're not frightened of me, why put a gagging order on me?
Yeah.
If you speak up, you will get canceled. I mean, I think the perfect example of that is a guy named Owen Benjamin, who, if anybody is familiar with him, he's a former actor, comedian, and he was absolutely canceled before canceling became the thing. Again, like 3 or 4 years ago, just because he had a comment on puberty blockers and transgender kids, and he didn't apologize. He didn't give one of those forced apologies, and they kicked him out of the castle. Absolutely. So I think that that's a perfect example of, if you speak out against the agendas and the narratives, you are done in Hollywood.